All right, let's jump right into this critical explainer because we are executing an immediate vulnerability disclosure on the Nux console extension. The goal here is simple, but it is absolutely urgent. We need to force immediate structural mitigation and vendor patching across the entire industry. We're looking at CVE 2026-48027. This is a supply chain compromise that completely weaponized our own trusted infrastructure to just seamlessly bypass enterprise defenses. And look, this wasn't some lucky guess on a weak password, right? This was a highly sophisticated, multi-stage heist orchestrated by a threat actor group known as Team PCP. So get your notebooks ready. Understanding the precise mechanics of this attack is literally the only way you're going to protect your environments right now.
Here is our tactical briefing agenda for today. We've got 1. Threat disclosure. 2. Secure comms check. 3. The builder's blind spot. 4. Blast radius and exfiltration. 5. The patch and remediation. And finally, 6. The ethics and sign-off.
Okay, Section 1. Threat disclosure. CVE 2026-48027.
This threat from Team PCP represents a complete structural compromise of the digital architecture of trust. We're talking a devastating CVSS critical score of 9.8. Team PCP systematically broke into one trusted tool, stole credentials from developer systems, and then used those exact credentials to break into the next legitimate tool. And this timeline is wild. It brilliantly illustrates the sheer speed of the exploit. It all starts on May 11th with a bypassed 7-day safeguard. Basically, a contributor ran a standard install, but because their team had pinned an older, outdated version of the PNPM package manager, they kind of locked themselves out of their own security update. That single defense-in-depth failure allowed a 2.3 megabyte credential harvester to swoop in and steal a GitHub CLI token in just 50 seconds. Fast forward to May 18th and the main payload drops. By May 27th, CISA had already added this to their KEV catalog, legally mandating federal agencies to patch. It spread like wildfire.
I want you to just sit with this number for a second. 18. 18 minutes is all it took for the malicious payload to sit live on Microsoft's VS Code marketplace before somebody pulled it. Now, in the security world, an 18-minute response time usually means you caught a break, right? You dodged a bullet. But as we're about to see, when you weaponize the automatic update mechanisms of a highly trusted IDE extension, well, 18 minutes is an absolute eternity. Section 2. Secure comms check. Establishing the link. Real quick, before we dissect the actual attack mechanics, we need to pause for a mandatory communication link setup. When vulnerabilities of this magnitude drop, real-time intelligence is your only real defense against evolving adversary tactics. So as a basic security necessity, please subscribe to @cybertech79 right now and enable all notifications. And while you're at it, drop a like on this explainer as a formal ACK, an acknowledgement of receipt for this intel. This just ensures you're securely patched into our coordinated vulnerability disclosure network the second 0 days like this go public. Okay, link established. Let's keep moving. Section 3. The builder's blind spot. The ultimate vulnerability. You know, for years, we have spent billions, literally billions of dollars securing our code's dependencies. We obsess over lock files and software bills of materials at the loading dock. But we've completely ignored the security guard standing inside the building holding the master keys, our local IDE extensions. After stealing that initial GitHub token on May 11th, the attackers didn't just do a smash and grab. No way. They spent 7 full days silently clearing their tracks. They were deleting CodeQL security analysis runs, manipulating workflows. And then they pushed what's known as an orphan commit to the official nrwell/nx GitHub repository. Think of an orphan commit like a secret room built inside a house, but it has no doors or hallways. Because it's completely detached from the main branch's timeline, it totally bypasses continuous integration builds, it avoids triggering any code review notifications, and it remains 100% invisible to automated security scanners. And it gets crazier. To protect this invisible staging ground, they wrapped their hidden payload in brazen psychological warfare. They actually attached a fake threat to the commit message reading, "Don't delete this commit before 24 hours or Wiper activates." This was specifically designed to terrify any database admins who might accidentally stumble across it into just leaving it alone. To top it all off, they forged the cryptographic signature of Zachary D. Rose, a highly respected former NX contributor. And because this was a ghost commit, there was no system there to flag that the signature was completely faked. Section 4. Blast radius and exfiltration. The impact. So, once the trap was set, they published the infected NX console update, specifically version 18.95.0, using a totally separate stolen VS PAT token. And this triggered an unprecedented structural collapse of the development pipeline.
Remember those 18 minutes we talked about? Well, because IDE extensions silently auto-update by default in the background without any review gates, that malicious payload achieved 6,000 automatic activations on developer machines worldwide. 6,000! The extension looked totally normal to the user, but on startup, it quietly ran a hidden script disguised as a routine setup task. And since the extension fetched the payload straight from official GitHub infrastructure, enterprise firewalls just looked at it, saw perfectly legitimate developer traffic, and waved it right on through. That unvetted rapid access directly caused the theft of 3,800 internal GitHub source code repositories. How does that happen? Well, one of those 6,000 auto activations just happened to land on the personal machine of a GitHub employee. So if you're tracking this, the attackers essentially weaponized Microsoft's own VS Code marketplace to deliver a payload that compromised a Microsoft employee, which they then used to raid Microsoft's own GitHub repositories. I mean, the irony there is just staggering. Now, what is truly terrifying is the target list for the credential harvester they dropped onto these machines. This thing established deep, permanent admin persistence across Mac, Windows, and Linux. And then it went hunting. It wasn't just after source code. It targeted the central nervous system of cloud infrastructure: AWS, GCP, HashiCorp Vault, Kubernetes configs. But look at that very last point. It actively hunted for cloud settings JSON. This makes it the absolute first known supply chain payload to specifically target the credentials and keys of AI coding assistants like Anthropic Claude. The attackers are skating to where the puck is going. They're looking to potentially poison the very AI models that are helping you write your code. To establish this deep persistence and to actually exfiltrate gigabytes of stolen data without enterprise network monitors catching them, they used a brilliant tri-channel escape route. If standard HTTPS or the GitHub API were somehow blocked, they fell back on DNS tunneling. Basically, they took the stolen data, chopped it up into tiny little fragments, and disguised those pieces as super mundane web address lookup requests. To a firewall, it just looks like a computer asking for directions to a weirdly named website. But in reality, they were smuggling the company's absolute crown jewels straight out the front door. Section 5. The patch and remediation, securing the chain. Knowing the massive blast radius and just how evasive this threat is, we absolutely have to demand immediate structural remediation. As defenders, we cannot afford to fall into the dangerous trap of temporary band-aids. Do not rely on false fixes. Disabling auto-updates or locking extension versions, that simply trades supply chain risk for vulnerability risk. If you do that when a legit security patch drops, your team won't get it, and you've just created an unscalable tracking nightmare for your SOC. And blocking specific commands like npx, that's just playing whack-a-mole. Attackers will simply bundle a native script in memory next time around. We need real fixes. Platforms must enforce mandatory two-factor authentication for all marketplace publishers, no exceptions. And we need cryptographic SIGSTOR-style provenance attestations proving that the code you download actually matches the verified source repo. Section 6. The ethics and sign-off. Our code. As we wrap up this technical deep dive, I want to quickly address the ethics of openly discussing these high-stakes vulnerabilities. Some people argue that detailing exploits like this just gives threat actors a playbook. But the code we operate by here dictates the exact opposite. Security through obscurity is a completely failed paradigm. You absolutely need to know this level of technical detail, down to the orphan commits and the DNS tunneling, to structurally protect your own systems. And more importantly, public disclosure is the main mechanism we have to actually force platforms and vendors to implement real structural patches, instead of just sweeping it under the rug with quiet half measures. So, as you go and audit your own development pipeline today, I want you to ask yourself a really hard question. Are your developers extending infinite future trust to unseen actors? Because every single time you click install on an extension, you are trusting every future update from whoever happens to hold that token. Go check your extensions, review your marketplace policies, implement the real structural fixes we talked about today. And as always, stay secure.